What is up, Math Superstars? In this edition of Mr. Peterson Presents, I'm bringing to you Objective 6.18. We're talking about one-step equations, and with this video, we're going to focus on what we do with multiplication and division in one step. So we have to remember some few things before we get started. The goal of solving equations is finding out what the variable is going to equal. So we're going to, at the end, we're going to figure out what our variable equals. So our goal with one-step equations, in order to do this, we're going to need to undo what is done to the variable using inverse operations. So we're going to go ahead and state the inverse operations. And so all that means is we're doing the opposite operation. And so in your equation, if it ever says to add 23, in order to get the variable by itself, we are going to subtract by 23. And you guessed it, if it says subtract by 18, the opposite of that, what we would do is we would add 18. And then if it says multiply by negative 15, what we would do is we would divide by negative 15. So we're just doing the inverse operation when we talk about solving for one-step equations. And last but not least, if it says to divide by 8, we would just multiply by 8. So in this problem, we have two examples here for addition and subtraction. Our next video will deal with multiplication and division. So let's go ahead and try this. We have our first example. We need to solve for what y equals. And so we have our problem here, y plus 3 equals 10. So our very first step is we're going to identify where the variable is. And so this is going to be critical to how we solve and write out our steps. So here we notice that our variable is on the left-hand side of our equation, being our variable being y. And we can state that what's being done to this, we are adding 3 to y. So in order to undo that, we would go ahead and subtract by 3 to both sides of our equation. So it looks like this. So we would subtract 3 from both sides of our equation. We apply it to both sides, and then we're going to solve both sides of this. So here's what it's going to look like. So we bring y down. So we say y, we bring down our equal sign. And then we would do 10 minus 3 would give us 7. And so we can say that y would equal 7. And then in order to check, so this is the second part to doing the one-step equations. And yes, you have to show your work because this is the foundational aspects of algebra. Very important when you're dealing with more than one variable in the future, when you have more than one or two steps, how you can organize your work to solve for the variables here. So in order to check, we're going to rewrite the original equation. So we would rewrite it y plus 3 equals 10. What we would do next, we would substitute 7 in for y. So when we would do this, we just write 7 plus 3 equals 10. And then what we would do is we need to do order of operations for the left-hand side of our equation. 7 plus 3, does that equal 10? And we can say yes, it does. Should be an equal sign there. So we should have 10 equal to 10. And if these two numbers are equal, then we did our solving for y appropriately. And so we know that this checks out, so we can put a nice little check there, and we are in good shape for that. So now let's try example number 2. So we have an example of subtraction here. So what we're doing to both sides is that we are subtracting by 7. So we identified our variable first. Our variable is y. It's on the right-hand side. So keep the variable on the right-hand side. It's going to be very important in the future. So we're subtracting 7 to our variable. In order to undo that, we are going to add 7 to both sides of our equation here. So let's go ahead and add 7 to the right and add 7 to the left. So now what we have to do, y is left by itself. So we have y. We bring down our equal sign. And then we have -2 plus a +7. When we do that, it comes out to 5. So we can say that 5 is equal to y. And now we have to perform our check. So in our check, what we're going to do is we're going to rewrite the original equation. Very nice. You're doing an excellent job so far. I know it's a lot of steps, but you can do this. You are a math superstar. What we're going to do is we're going to replace y for what we found up here. So we found y to equal to 5. So let's go ahead and fill that in. So then you have to do order of operations on the right-hand side this time. So 5 minus 7 will give us -2. And since -2 equals -2, we can put a little check, smiley face, heart, star next to that, as we know that we did our solving for y correctly since both of those numbers are equal. So what I want you to do is to apply these steps. So go back to example number 1 for the addition problems, example number 2 for the subtraction problems, and go ahead and try the rest of the examples at the bottom of the page.